Puzzle Quest 2, we're in one of the opening menus here, and Tim, who's doing the game for us, is about to play single player. He's going to go and choose a character. As you can see, we've got 4 character classes in the game now. There's an assassin, and you can pull up a little bit of information about each one of the classes. Very similar to Puzzle Quest 1 in there's 4 classes, but the 4 classes have changed, and this time the 4 classes mirror the traditional kind of classes you'd find in an MMO. Actually, you've got a kind of a crowd control class, you've got a healing class, you've got a real damage dealing class, and you've got a tank class, which is the Templar. So for the demo today, Tim's actually going to select the Barbarian, and of course male and female versions of each one, exactly like the first game. One of the first things you'll notice in the demo here is that the art style's changed a little bit from Puzzle Quest 1. Gone with much more of a Western style, and I think this fits in a lot more with the nature of the game. As you'll see when we get into the game, it's a real dungeon crawl. It's got kind of an element of Puzzle Quest. Puzzle Quest meets Diablo, that kind of feel to it. So we're going through the opening cutscene here. And the final thing, these are all voiced and they sound pretty cool. It's a real traditional fantasy story. We've moved Puzzle Quest 2 back to the fantasy genre from where Galactrix went sci-fi. We've gone back to our roots here with the fantasy genre because we think fantasy just kind of feels right for a game like this. And once again, we've got that really nice fantasy feel to the game. So we just get through the intro here, and we'll be in the first level of the town of Barbarian. Now, a little bit of background behind this story. In previous games in the Warlords franchise, a creature called Gorgon was locked within the ice, one of the demon lords. And in Puzzle Quest 2, you actually get to travel up into the northern wastes to the place where this demon was locked within the ice, and just find out what's going on, because strange things have been happening in the town of Barbarian and people have been disappearing. So you're a hero sent on a mission to try to find out what's been making them disappear. Has the demon been eating them? Have they been sacrificed to the demon? Exactly what's happening. So the first thing that happens is you roll up in the town of Barbarian, and we'll get there in just a minute as soon as we dip down below the ice here. So you can see there's the Barbarian standing at the gates of the town. He's going to go over and talk to the guard at the gate, and the guard at the gate's going to give him a quest. So it's a very easy game to get into. We've got the traditional exclamation point over the head of anybody who's got a quest. The quests are given, the objectives appear on the screen, and bam, there's some rats standing at the gate. And in the tradition of all good fantasy games, the first thing you get to do is fight a bunch of rats. So we get through a nice little intro screen here. Tim's into the fight against the rats, and you'll immediately see that it looks very much like Puzzle Quest 1, which I think is just a damn fine thing. But there's a few differences. Still, we'll be matching skulls to do damage, and that's behaving pretty much like the previous game. But you'll notice that the experience and gold gems are gone, and in their place we have 2 different sorts of gems. We have a purple mana gem, giving us 5 different kinds of magic in this game. So there's a whole new kind of magic to learn. And secondly, although none of them are dropped onto the board at the moment because this is the first demo board, we've got the fist icon, which represents action points. And you'll be able to use action points as you progress in the game to activate weapons that you pick up. So not only can you use spells like you did in Puzzle Quest 1, but you can also pick up and use weapons, shields, poisons, healing potions, other sorts of mana accelerant potions. So Tim's completed the first quest, and he's got some XP and a gold reward, and he's been given his next quest, which is to go into town and investigate what's happening in the town. Goblins have been attacking. He's hopped into town, and yep, sure enough, goblins popped up right in the very first area of town. He's to fight against the goblin, and this fight should go a little bit longer because the goblin's got a few more hit points, and we'll see that Tim's accessed his first spell, which is Pummel. Now you see Pummel takes 4 red mana, so as soon as Tim gets 4 mana, which he's begun but hasn't done yet, and there we go, 4 mana, so he's able to cast the Pummel spell. Now Pummel will damage the enemy based on... Can you pull up the hint for Pummel? I can't remember exactly what it does. It's been too long since I played level 1 Barbarian. Okay, it causes 1 damage for every 2 red gems currently on the battle board. So if you can fill the board with red gems and then let loose with Pummel, it'll do an awful lot of damage. And you'll find when you're fighting orcs later in the game, orcs have a spell called Enrage, which absolutely fills the board with red gems. It's good fun pummeling the orcs. So the goblin's got a sneak attack where he can use some blue mana to shoot some damage back at you. And I don't think the goblin's going to be lasting too much longer because he's rather severely outmanned here. But there's his sneak attack spell. Alright, and you can see now on the board are those fist icons. Now, matching fist icons would accumulate some action points to use a weapon, but we don't have a weapon yet. In the good tradition, also another tradition of fantasy games, we've walked into town completely without any weapons, and we'll be picking some weapons up after this battle. Alright, so one more point of damage to do and the goblin goes down. Now, for all those people who remember Puzzle Quest 1 and the cheating AI in Puzzle Quest 1, which I still insist did not cheat, once again the AI in this game does not cheat. I guarantee you, no cheating here at all. Tim's gone up a level, and when you go up a level, you'll get a new spell. Spell's listed there as Tribal Mark, and he can also choose one of his stats to increase. Now, all the stats do things in this game, but really they're a lot more interesting than in Puzzle Quest 1. Your strength, for example, will increase your chance of getting weapon criticals. Your agility will increase the amount of action points you can get to use your weapons. It'll also determine who goes first. And increase your defense. I'll cover defense in a minute in the next fight. Intelligence can increase your starting mana. It also will increase your ability to play mini-games. And we've got a lot of mini-games in Puzzle Quest 2. A lot of really, really cool mini-games. And morale, well, that'll increase your spell resistance. Alright, so being a good barbarian, Tim's chosen strength, increased his strength by 1, which should just increase the amount of damage. He's going to complete this quest and hop onto the next screen for the next quest. And here we go, first weapon of the game. Picked up a bastard sword. Awesome sword, two-handed, does a ton of damage, costs 6 action points and will do 5 damage to an opponent. So now there's really 2 ways to damage things. You've got skulls that you can match, and you've got a weapon that you can activate. So it just makes some of those battles, some of the really long battles, play through a bit quicker and gives you 2 ways to damage your opponent, which is kind of cool. But also kind of cool is the ability you've got to swap out the weapons. So I could swap out the two-handed sword for a one-handed sword, does a little bit less damage, and put a shield up, which will give me more defense and the ability to block damage. Alright, now. And here's the inventory, which shows how we equip those things. So we've picked up a few items and the sword. Going to equip that. It appears in a slot down at the bottom of the inventory, and we're good to go and lay about that next goblin. So here we go. We're up again on the goblin now. You can see we've got a second spell, Tribal Mark, has kicked in, and that'll let us use red gems to increase our attack bonus. So you can see the Barbarian's really starting to be built around red gems. That's pretty much the nature of the Barbarian. He uses a lot of red gems in combat. And all of the classes are themed to coloured gems a little bit like that. And there goes the Bastard Sword. He's fired that off. Now every single weapon's got an effect like that. Some of the weapons have got pretty cool effects. Once you get the Great Hammer at the end of the game, or one of the Great Clubs, weapons that only the Barbarian can use, actually. They thud down in that screen, and it's a fantastic effect. If you've got a big surround sound setup on your Xbox, your neighbours are going to hate you for that one. Alright. And we've still got those favourite +5 skulls in from Puzzle Quest 1, and they still explode and do damage exactly like the first game. So if you've played Puzzle Quest 1, this game is going to be immediately familiar to you. And you'll see Tribal Mark is active now, and fire that bastard sword off. That goblin's on 1 hit point. Fire Tribal Mark off. Go on, Tribal Mark off. It's got a really cool special effect. There we go. And bam. And you can see that's pushed up there. That little number 3 that's just increased, that's just skull attack bonus. And that is how much damage you add whenever you match skulls. So if Tim matched 3 skulls now, he'd add 3 to that and do a total of 6 points of damage, which you see onto the goblin, and the goblin goes down. Now, there was a little number below that 3, which was a 1, and that's current defense. Now there's defense in this game, and you can get defense by getting armor and getting shields while you play. You can see Tim's picking up the Enrage spell now, he's got to level 3. And Enrage puts red gems all over the board, and well, as I said, Barbarian's being built around red gems. Putting red gems all over the board is a pretty awesome thing if you're a Barbarian. So you can see the spells start to work together, and we've spent a long time balancing the classes in this game to make sure there's amazing spell synergies in there. You've got 5 slots you can put spells into. You can learn the spells as a hero. You can pick up companions who will give you spells. And you can also learn spells off some of the goblins down deeper in the dungeon. And there are some pretty amazing synergies between these spells for the classes, so all the classes play very, very differently. And they've moved along 1 square further in the game. We've come across a challenge. There's a fire on one of the buildings, and we've got to put the fire out. This is a special challenge fight with special rules. Now in this particular fight, matching blue gems puts out the fire, matching red gems burns you, and also increases the amount of hit points the fire's got. This is pretty lucky. We've got a lot of blue gems on the board when we started the fight, so it's going to be a pretty easy fire to put out this time. But not all the challenges are this easy. There's some really, really interesting challenges later in the dungeon, including things like the Green Dragon and the Yeti. And there's special achievements on Xbox for completing those, and special leaderboards for how quickly you can beat those creatures.